Today, we journey into the heart of Afghanistan, a land of poetry, music, hospitality, and timeless traditions. Beyond the headlines lies a culture rich with colors, flavors, and stories that connect people across generations. Pour some tea and join us as we explore the soul of Afghanistan.
You know, Amir, every time someone asks me about Afghanistan, I feel like there's so much to say that I don't even know where to begin, because it's not just one story or one set of traditions. It's layers upon layers of history, languages, art, hospitality, and ways of life that have been shaped over centuries, and I think people who've never visited often have such a narrow image based on the news, which misses the warmth, the poetry, the music, and the everyday beauty that's deeply woven into the culture.
Exactly, Layla. And I've noticed that when I speak with people abroad, they're always surprised when I tell them about the incredible diversity within Afghanistan itself, because they tend to imagine one uniform culture, but in reality, the country is home to many different ethnic groups like Pashtun, Tajiks, Hazaras, Uzbeks, Turkmens, and others, each with their own languages, dialects, clothing styles, and regional customs, and yet, despite these differences, there's a shared sense of hospitality and honor that unites people, something you can feel whether you're in a busy Kabul bazaar or in a small mountain village in Bamiyan. And the tea culture itself is worth talking about, because tea isn't just a drink, it's part of the social fabric. People gather over green tea or black tea served in small glasses, sometimes sweetened with cardamom, and the act of pouring and offering tea can be a slow, meaningful ritual, almost like a pause in the day where people can talk, catch up on news, and share stories. And I think that's part of why relationships here tend to feel so personal and connected.
Another thing that fascinates me is the role of poetry and storytelling, because in Afghan culture, poetry isn't just something in books. It's alive in daily conversation, in proverbs, and even in casual chats. People often quote Rumi, Kashal Khan Khattak, or Rahman Baba, and sometimes you hear elders using old sayings that carry wisdom from generations past. And I think that's because Afghanistan's oral tradition has always been a way to pass on values, humor, and life lessons in a way that feels both artistic and deeply human.
That's so true. And if we talk about art, we can't forget about Afghan music, which is incredibly varied depending on the region. You've got the rubab, which is a beautiful lute-like instrument often called the lion of instruments here, and you have a tan, the national dance, which is usually performed in circles with rhythmic drum beats, and it can go on for hours at celebrations like weddings, building this almost hypnotic energy where everyone claps, spins, and moves together in harmony.
Weddings themselves are such a huge part of Afghan culture, and they're not just a one-day event. They can last for days, with different stages and traditions, from the henna night to the formal ceremonies, and they often involve hundreds of guests, lavish clothes, and a lot of music and dancing. It's not unusual for people to travel long distances just to attend, because weddings are a time when communities really come together. And they're also an opportunity to display traditional clothing, like embroidered dresses, turbans, and waistcoats that carry regional identity.
Speaking of clothing, I love how each region has its own style. In Herat, for example, you might see more Persian-inspired embroidery, while in the north you might see colorful Uzbek patterns, and in Pashtun areas, men often wear shalwar kameez with waistcoats and turbans, while women's dresses can be incredibly vibrant, sometimes with mirror work or silk threads. And what's interesting is that these designs often carry symbolic meaning or are tied to specific occasions. So they're not just fashion, they're part of cultural storytelling.
And food, Amir. We can't skip food, because Afghan cuisine is one of the most comforting in the world, in my opinion. You've got dishes like kabili paleo, which is rice cooked with raisins, carrots, and lamb, layered with flavors that are both sweet and savory. Mantu, which are delicate steamed dumplings often filled with minced meat and onions, served with yogurt and tomato sauce. And of course bolani, stuffed flatbread that can be filled with potatoes, leeks, or pumpkin, which makes it a favorite street food snack.
And I think what makes the food special is that it's usually prepared with so much care, often taking hours, because meals are a social event, not just a quick refueling, and that ties back to the Afghan emphasis on togetherness. Meals are shared from large platters, everyone eating with their hands using bread to scoop food, which creates this feeling of unity and equality. And I've always thought that this way of eating breaks down barriers between people.
Then there's the geography, which plays such a huge role in shaping the culture. Afghanistan's mountains, deserts, and fertile valleys have influenced everything from architecture to diet to trade routes. For example, in the mountainous regions, people have adapted to a more self-sufficient lifestyle, while in the cities you see a mix of influences from centuries of Silk Road connections, blending Persian, Central Asian, Indian, and even Chinese cultural elements into daily life.
And that blend of influences is part of why Afghanistan has such a rich craft tradition. You see it in carpet weaving, which is famous worldwide, each carpet telling a story through patterns and colors that often reflect the weaver's surroundings and tribal heritage. You see it in the hand-painted tiles of mosques and in the calligraphy that decorates both religious and everyday objects. And you see it in the jewelry, often made of silver with turquoise and lapis lazuli, the latter being a gemstone that Afghanistan has been known for since ancient times.
I also think it's important to mention the deep sense of community responsibility. In Afghan culture, people often feel a duty to help not just family but neighbors and even strangers in need, and this extends to things like sharing harvests, helping build homes, or contributing to someone's wedding expenses. It's a system that isn't formalized, but it works because it's built on trust and mutual respect. And it's something I've always admired about rural and urban communities alike.
Absolutely. And one last thing I'd add is the resilience of Afghan culture. Through decades of challenges, people have held on to their traditions, music, poetry, and language, adapting where necessary but never letting go of the core values of hospitality, honor, and respect for elders. And I think that's what makes Afghanistan so unique. It's a culture that can endure hardship yet still greet you with a smile, a cup of tea, and a story to share.